All right, welcome everyone. For those watching, this is the Shit Take, our maiden voyage. We are your hosts, your masters of ceremony. I am Error for the win, and Stella
I'm
B is here as well.
Stellaby. Yes. So this is basically going to be our channel for our reviews, critiques on pretty much anything. We're kind of, I guess, disappointed with reading all these different things about all these different things and not agreeing with it and having so much to really complain about. And so we just figured it'd be a good idea for us to kind of put our opinions online.
It's venting with dialogue, like
Exactly.
the worst thing that somebody can do is talk at you and not present, a platform in which you can give each other. And it's not like we're saying we're right about everything. We want feedback, we want to have that talk. Maybe we're wrong. Put us in our place if you have to, but
Yeah.
invite the dialogue. That
We've
that I think that's important.
we've spent a lot of time arguing with one with each other and two with so many of our friends just about all these different things and really when it comes down to it, I think me and Arrow we kind of mirror each other with a lot of our thoughts. So we figured this would probably be the best way for us to do it. Just kind of put it online ourselves, have our opinion out there, and if anyone wanted to challenge it, if anyone wanted to offer any kind of suggestions for us to critique or review anything they also feel might not get the critique and the honest reviews that they feel that it should. And you'll know here in just a little bit whenever we actually start talking the kind of things that we're referring to, stuff that might not be so readily um, challenged in today's public culture. So, you know, to be completely honest, we're not really the ones that have ever kind of throttled ourselves when it came to what we said, what we spoke, and so that's what we really want to do. We just want to kind of put our honest take out there, and that's why this is called the shit take.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it has to do with like what is considered the general consensus. And oh, I've heard from 9 out of 10 people they all love this blank, they all love that blank. But sometimes you want to hear that other side of the opinion. Maybe it does agree with you, maybe it doesn't. But like just having that as a reference and just saying like, hey, like somebody agrees with me, or hey, this is something I stand by so firmly that nothing you can say is gonna open your eyes. And we're just here trying to give that. We're trying to give that 1 out of 10. You know what I mean?
In no way, shape, or form are we claiming to be professionals whatsoever. This is
Absolutely,
this
absolutely
is
not.
this is our personal takes. We do other things for our livelihood. Um, we come from completely different backgrounds.
And yeah, it's just it's two people here. Just we're riffing. We're just spewing our opinion. We want to hear back from you. If you have stuff that, hey, why don't you review this show, this movie, this game? What are your thoughts on this? It's general discussion. What we're
Exactly.
just trying to put out here is
Yeah.
general discussion between ourselves, between you, like everyone. You
It,
know,
anytime we so you'll probably notice what we'll do is we'll talk a lot about anime, talk a lot about movies, about games, card games, doesn't matter. Whatever it is that we
yeah.
end up getting into, it's going to seem most like a conversation between me, Stella B, and my friend Arrow. And that's really all we're trying to do is just kind of put dialogue out there. And I know, like, anytime I experience something new, the first person I go to is Arrow. We talk to each other constantly.
Yeah.
All we ever really do is just kind of watch something. Hey, have you watched this? Have you played this yet? And the moment that each of us have, then we start to really discuss it and open that dialogue. But
And this one is just the latest in a laundry list of what we believe to be, passing unlackluster. So,
and so the topic is obviously Cowboy Bebop, as you can see here. Got my little
yep.
spike and vicious fighting. Um, I want to start right off the bat by I find it mostly interesting that the things that get the most hate online when it comes to casting is anime. Like it's anime.
Absolutely.
You know, of course, Marvel has their own issues, Disney has their own issues, and it's frustrating for from that angle as well. But mostly from anime, right? Because you have the Attack on Titan thing. Just right off the bat, Attack on Titan. I was talking about this earlier. The show, the storyline is very much a specific way. The storyline is very important. It is
Absolutely. Yeah.
intended to be, you know, European,
Yes.
all pretty much white folk,
Yeah.
and
You can't argue that at all.
and I understand, right? And this is something I came to grips with pretty quick with that one. Is I wasn't upset that the casting for the movie ended up being all Japanese. It's made by a Japanese studio. You know what I mean? That
Mhm.
doesn't frustrate me. But if that movie was made here in America, would it receive that same would it receive that same um, I guess respect to the storyline? And I don't think it would. I don't think it would receive that same respect for the storyline because it's, to be completely honest, it's a specific way for a reason, and once you get later on into the storyline why it's that way.
Yes.
But it's one of those
Spoilers.
examples. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to spoil anything particular, um, but it's one of those examples that not whitewashing couldn't exist for the Attack on Titan storyline. You know what I mean? They're already
Yeah.
white
No. Yeah.
characters. So I mean,
Exactly.
you if you casted them white, it wouldn't be a problem because that's what they are. Now the Cowboy Bebop thing. I read in an article the producer for Cowboy Bebop, his literal words were, Spike Spiegel has to be Asian. Now, I have no issue with that, right? No issue with the
Mhm.
fact that he has to be Asian. But there actually is an Asian character in Cowboy Bebop,
Mhm.
and that's Faye, and she was
Yeah.
not casted Asian.
She is specifically
She's
stated as
specifically Asian,
Singaporean. Yes,
but
she's
she,
Singaporean.
but for some reason she wasn't the has to be Asian. It was
Right.
Spike, and I find that so disingenuous. I know exactly why they're doing it. Of course, it's the political climate. It's everything going on in the
Yeah.
world. But that's not why that's not how they're portraying it. They're portraying it in a completely different light, and it's super disingenuous light, and it's just really frustrating, man. Like it's really frustrating because you're not casting actors based on warrant. You're casting actors based on political climate, and it just seems so wrong to me. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely, and I absolutely agree. And see, the thing is, even going back to the whole Attack on Titan thing, one of the main characters, without getting too much into the story, is specifically, Asian, and she's referred to as exotic in the story because nobody's seen somebody of this race, and that's how she's portrayed. And obviously, if you were to take those characteristics of her and put it in the Japanese film with everyone being Asian, suddenly there would be no point to see why she's so exotic if she's literally looking like everybody else. And even the last names, Jaeger and Reinhardt, like it's Germanic, it absolutely is, and you
Yeah,
can't really tell me saying like, oh, they're this race or that race or this culture. And it's like, no, it's what that story's built on is the foundation of certain cultural structures, and her happening to be from this exotic faraway country that they you know play a little bit more into the story. It just was not translated well to screen at all,
yeah,
and I really don't see how somebody can say that it did. And obviously the films didn't do as well as they wanted to box office wise, but I don't know. But touching more on obviously the Cowboy Bebop, which is the point you're trying to make here. Like Spike, yeah, like that was the main thing, with has to be Asian, has to be Asian. And John Cho is, I mean, he's always been a very comedic actor, and I'm not saying that he hasn't had dramatic roles, but he always fit a certain mold for me, and it'll be interesting seeing how that is portrayed through Spike. And Well, I know Spike is a practitioner of Jeet Kune Do. I'm going off the last name. I wouldn't say that's inherently Asian.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, Faye, absolutely. Uh, she's like I said mentioned before. She's mentioned to be Singaporean in the show, and I mean, dude, even talking about Ein, they wanted to put a German
Yeah.
Shepherd as Ein, and it's like he's a corgi. Like
It's
that's him. That he's a freaking corgi. Like
like
how hard?
half of the product that you can purchase regarding Cowboy Bebop is a corgi.
Yeah, he's as much a mascot as the ship itself, and
Exactly.
it's crazy to think that you want to, because I mean they're
And that's
gonna
the same
put stuff
person.
out. No,
That's the
absolutely,
same
and they're
person who said Spike has to
yes,
be Asian. It's like
yes.
it's so
It's
it's
it's about
confusing
picking
as
and choosing.
fuck.
Yes, it's about picking and choosing what they want when they want it. But
Exactly.
they want to stand on this pedestal on this podium. But when you bring any sort of outside criticism to another side of the podium, suddenly it's like, well, you shouldn't be arguing about that because we're giving you this. This is what you want. This is what you need.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, I mean, if you're telling me that you're sitting there as a casting director, however big your budget is, and saying that like, oh, we for hours do the best of the best. I was like, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this right now. Any adaptation that would come to a live action field, whether it's a TV show, a web series, a movie, if they were to reveal those screen tests before these people got hired and set on a stage, I guarantee you the fan reaction would be terrible.
Yeah.
Because what they do is they finish it, and they have, oh, this is the polished product, blah blah blah, and we don't see that. We don't ever get to see that until it's already started. And then what happens when it fails? Suddenly the powers that be, the production companies, the studios are like, oh, this was a bust. We never should have attempted it. No, it could have been good had you put the actual time, actually study the product. How many of these people who are in charge of these shows, these movies, have ever seen this series themselves? But no, they think it's a hot commodity. They're like, oh, let's take this IP. This is really popular with people around the world, and then deliver them this just half finished product. This
Yeah.
never. And how hard is it to do the homework? That's what I want to know.
It's 26 episodes. Like
Exactly.
it's
Like,
not difficult. Like
no,
and
not at
there's
all. Like, you
and
could
there's a
take a
movie
day to
you
finish
can
it.
watch as well. Like I mean it's really not difficult. And
It's not like,
and that's the worst part is like dude, I remember you and a couple of other friends, we sat
yeah,
and how many times have we sat and talked about like, oh, if Yu Yu Hakusho is made into a movie, who would play the roles?
exactly.
How many times have we done these things, and like we've gone over these movies, we've gone over these shows that are currently being made, that have been made, and every single one of them, it just seems like they're making it for Netflix, and they're
Yes,
not making it for
absolutely.
anybody else. They're
No,
not
and
making it
and
for
you know,
anyone else.
no, and I really hate that phrase, by the fans for the fans, and they try to like say like, trust me, we're gonna do it justice, and it's like, show your work, man, because if you can sit there, and even Japan, that'll like popular series will have like those stage shows, those plays,
Yeah.
and they'll put so much more work to a play that's a hundredth the budget with
Mm-hmm.
costumes and effects, and it pops, it comes alive. Like, you can watch this, and you're suddenly there,
Yeah.
and you're just like, wow, like, I can't wait to see this again. Or, man, imagine how cool a movie would be if they did this. And just your example, the Yu Yu Hakusho stage play, like, it looked
Yeah.
fantastic,
No.
from cast to the cast of costumes. Like, it looked like, man, like, I could see a professional cosplay done of this just because of how well it looked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. It looks
And
good. I mean, I would watch it. 100%. I would
yeah,
watch it, and I'd pay to
and
watch it. Like
oh,
I'm super interested in that.
absolutely, yes,
But
and it
translating that to a movie, I'm scared. I don't want to watch that. I just right off the bat, and I talked to you this about this the other day. It's like, how many times do I have to be let down with the Death
yeah,
Note movie, the Attack on Titans,
exactly, yeah,
with Ghost in the Shell is actually, and then the worst part is, right, he used Ghost in the Shell as a reference point, basically
Yes,
said he doesn't
and
want
of
to Scarlett
course,
Johansson the
yes.
Cowboy Bebop. But why not?
I mean,
Why not? Like Scarlett Johansson. I mean, say what you will about ScarJo, at least Ghost in the Shell it was pleasant to watch.
I I agree, but I will say that she was in like a media like
Oh
tornado
my
of
god,
how
yeah.
people were pissed off about her casting. So my question is, why is it okay for her but not others? Like, are you saying that her performance elevated the characters, so at that point it didn't matter,
Oh no.
or just
Personally, I wouldn't say I was super interested in her
Mhm.
particularly, but the movie itself, for me personally,
No?
it was pleasant to watch.
Yeah, Ghost in the Shell, like that. Don't get me wrong, Kusanagi is a fantastic character, strong female role, but like just that entire world of like the cyber crimes, the robotics, like everything
Yeah,
that we see, it's something straight out of like science fiction like 101. Like what would happen if you blended the lines between robot and man? And I think like that whole world is just fantastic.
of course.
Like without question, like that's something that like it's one of the first animes I remember watching like an Adult Swim. Like you stay up late enough
Mm-hmm.
and you'll just start seeing those credits for Ghost in the Shell, and it was amazing. Uh, yeah, man. Like, and see the thing is for every Ghost in the Shell that like turns out well despite casting, there's the Dragon Ball Evolution, and I
Oh my
hate
god,
and I
yeah.
hate doing it because it's such an easy target, and I
Yeah,
hate hate having to bring it up because if you look at Justin Chatwin's other stuff, like even if you've never seen Shameless, like he plays a role in Shameless and it's good. Like he's not a bad actor.
no, not at all.
And Stephen Chow, like come on, like really, like you're not a fan of Stephen Chow, Kung Fu Hustle, Shaolin Shocker, like freaking Journey of the West. I saw with you,
Mm-hmm.
never seen it before, and it was amazing. Like
Yeah,
character
it's
wise,
great.
the effects, costumes, like it was all so fantastic. So you see, like, oh, Stephen Chow, he can't do no wrong. Like, the guy's a master of his craft. And then you see that Dragon Ball Evolution, and it's just like story, character wise, muddled, like so, like I don't even want to say whitewashed, but like Americanized Goku.
Yeah,
Like, and I hate bringing that up because it's like you're not whitewashing Goku because he's
he's
not
an alien.
Japanese. He's an alien. He's what
He
It
can be
just so
whatever you want him
happens.
to be if you really like it. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And it just so happens that he follows that Superman rule of, he's a character from beyond the stars that just happens to look like you and me. Like he grew up in Kansas and nobody thought for a second like, hey, this guy looks just like, the neighbor downstairs, he's next door. He looks like us, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But like
But when you start getting to
Goku,
like Spike Spiegel,
right. Like the name's gonna
when Spike
throw you for a loop.
Spiegel has to be Asian,
Right.
then you have to start questioning things. And that's how I am. It has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with race. Just to put it right, just put it right up there. It has nothing to do
Right.
with race because the first time I saw the casting, right, I thought well, I mean, I'm okay with Jet. I'm okay
Yeah.
with Faye. I understand why they don't want to go the over sexualized route. Perfectly
Hmm.
okay with that, to be completely honest. But it's so weird that the one character that actually is Asian doesn't have to be Asian, and the
Right.
character that is Spiegel, which is I guess like it's supposed to be like a Jewish last name,
Yeah.
has to be Asian. I know it's all multicultural, and like
Yeah.
if you really look at Spike, you can see that it's like it's a good blend of like a whole bunch of. He even has like
Yeah.
a
Of
darker
course.
skin tone. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, he could have literally been anybody. Then why did he have to be Asian?
Right.
And that was the thing for me is it seemed like such a super disingenuous thing to say.
Like, don't get me
And
wrong. Like, the crew of the Cowboy Bebop is, like they all have a very important impact,
yeah,
including the character we haven't seen yet, who is as blended as can possibly be. But whenever, yeah, you know who I'm talking about. They just haven't
yeah.
revealed her yet. Um, for somebody to say that Spike's not the main character, like, come on, he's the primary focus of the series. So I understand wanting to have like, the star quarterback, be the top rookie pick of the year, and then you have your line that's like, we got some heavy hitters, but the argument that I had for so long is like, why wouldn't it be Keanu Reeves? And people kept on saying, oh, he's too old, he's too old. If it would have been made 10 years ago, like this movie, or this is a show, but when it was pitched as a movie so many years ago, like he was always a front runner, and all of a sudden now he's too old. And I looked up John Cho, and I think he's like 50, if not just turning 50. So my question comes back to like, why wouldn't you just do Keanu Reeves? The guy's already trained in so many martial arts. He's an actor that can handle this role easily,
Yeah.
and the guy's Polynesian, so you can't say like, oh, here's another
Yeah.
white role cast into this. But for them to like say that it's okay for this but not okay for that, like you're taking parts of your argument that are convenient for you and just leaving out, like I said, everything else. And
And the funny thing about the Keanu Reeves thing is he was a fan. He was
yeah,
a
oh,
true fan,
absolutely,
and he was pushing
yes,
for it, not just for himself, but for the community of
yeah,
fans that really wanted to see it happen. And we're not going to get that. It's plain and
yeah,
simple. We're not going to get that. And the thing that I worry most about is I'm a fan of John Cho.
yeah,
I'm a
absolutely.
fan, but I'm afraid this is going to affect that. I'm afraid that me seeing this is going to be like, well, he failed, and
Yeah, you're getting that black mark on your record now.
not just that, but for something that I've been waiting for a long time,
Oh yeah, like
waiting a long time
Cowboy.
for it. And the
Yes,
one
Cowboy.
guy who's like, I'm a fan of you, is going to be the cause for it to be a failure.
Yeah,
And
Cowboy Bebop came out 20 years ago, so it's cultured a very like long building fan base, and especially like you said, it's only 26 episodes. So something like that is constantly in conversation about, oh, what is the what is a good anime, blah blah blah. Like it's a space opera. It's impacted so much science fiction. You can see shades of Spike's character in John Wick. Even in Firefly, you can see that sort of like a crew dynamic and spacefaring adventures, because they're bounty hunters. Like
yeah,
they're gonna be doing something. They're after a target, and there's so much like that goes into that in that story. At not only like, oh, is this gonna get adapted, or are we gonna see original ideas, this and that? Like, how many episodes is it gonna be? Like,
yeah,
eh, it is worrying. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's something that Netflix, with its resources and how much money they put into things nowadays, like you feel like if I just gave you a complete clean slate, never seen this before, then yeah, maybe that was interesting to me. Oh, that was definitely something I'd check out again. Versus, there's gonna be that fan demand that like we don't want it to fit just a particular mold, but it's like your your outline is there.
yeah.
You have a source material to adapt. You're not having to come up with this all by yourself. You're not having to say like, man, what are we gonna call this, Cowboy Bebop? Like, no, like it exists already. You know what I mean? Like you can just take what's already there and just put a live action spin on it. Like it doesn't have to exactly be a one for one, but don't act like this was so difficult that you just couldn't like, "Oh, we were just doomed for the gate. Like we just didn't know where we were going." And people like to talk about Faye. Obviously, she's the one that's getting the most out of it. But it's like, I think whenever you see characters that are like the femme fatale character, like specifically, I'll say like Lupin the Third, Fujiko. Fujiko is no stranger to men's looks. She is a wily assassin type character who will just as easily seduce you and she will outmaneuver you intellectually. She balances all that together. But she's no stranger to like a short skirt,
Yeah,
half cut dress. I mean, there's times she's dressed up as Lupin himself. You know what I mean? Like she's a master of disguise. So yeah, like okay, because like for me, I
so I
take it.
paused.
Yeah, starting from superhero movies, there was this trend, and it honestly didn't matter in Superman because Superman doesn't wear a mask. But I started really noticing it like, heavily whenever they made Iron Man for the first part, and so much of that movie is Robert Downey Jr. with the helmet off. They want you to see this actor. They want you to know that.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, screw a superhero identity, right? And I made it apparent to a buddy of mine the other day with how in the new Spider-Man trailer he clicks the thing, and the mask just morphs on him, and I'm like, man, I really miss those days of Tobey Maguire just having to pull off the mask when he was changing or putting it on, and now it's just so seamless. Also, you can see Tom Holland's face, and with Black Widow, who was the only female character in the original Avengers, she doesn't have a secret identity really. Like she's in her spy outfit, she's got her guns and all that, but she
Yeah.
doesn't wear a mask. She doesn't need to, and I don't think they did it until I want to say Captain Marvel, because she has like the kind of like space mohawk with like the mask on her. Then her appearance in Endgame, she doesn't have the
Completely
mask on
different.
at
Yeah.
all. Yeah, so you can see that it's Brie Larson, and with the Mandalorian specifically, they had that whole like, oh, where Mandalorians never take off their helmet, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden everyone's taking off their helmet so that you can specifically see the
Yeah.
actress.
So they can sell the actress or the actor.
Yes, exactly. Like,
That's all it is.
I
I
mean,
mean, that's what it is. I mean, they're just there. That's what they have to do. They have to sell these actors and actresses because once they make a movie, and you hear that this actor or this actress is going to be in the movie,
yeah,
you're going to go see it. Like, I mean,
like, oh yeah, yeah,
because
the character from this.
originally I loved the idea of them never showing his face.
Yeah,
I thought that they were gonna. I thought they were gonna actually stick with that. I thought, oh, cool, they're never gonna show his face. That seems really cool to me because, I mean, even if
spoilers for
you,
Mandalorian.
no, yeah, sorry, had to put a little
Sorry.
spoiler warning on underneath,
Yeah,
but
it's gonna go into those. It's
yeah,
gonna go
but
into one of those really quickly.
I mean, they're gonna be spoilers galore if you're watching this. It's gonna be
Yeah, that
absolutely
it.
spoilers because
Yeah, like 80% review. I don't know, like
yeah,
something.
that's what
Something's
this
getting reviewed.
is we're complaining
Yeah,
or we're talking about something and at the
exactly.
end of the day, it's gonna be completely unavoidable. Um,
I agree.
because you know it's really impossible to get fully into it without getting fully into it.
Yes,
And
no,
so
I
and
agree.
so that's
Yeah,
why, just permanent warning for the entirety
permanence,
of this
permanence.
life of this
Yes,
channel.
exactly.
but
To infinity and beyond.
I honestly I like that idea because I thought, okay, cool, this is a really cool idea. Um, let's instead of selling an actor, instead of promoting a person, instead let's promote the story and promote the performances, not the person. And the moment you found out it was him, right? Like, what's his name in Game of Thrones? I forget.
Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal. Yeah, but it wasn't even necessary to even show the guy's face because you already knew who he was. You're not selling
And
his look; you're selling his performance and his portrayal of this character, Mando.
absolutely. And see, the thing is, the first that we see of Mandalorians was in the original Star Wars, and I don't ever remember seeing Boba Fett's face. It wasn't until the prequel trilogy that introduced Jango and the whole clones and how they were
Mm-hmm.
all like blah blah blah. And then when we see what it was presented to me as from Mandalorian was like he was that silent, wet gunslinger type character, like the man with no name, from The Good, Bad, and Ugly. And we're never really introduced to any real identity of that character. He goes with the wind, he town to town solving problems, that sort of thing. So whenever Disney's approached this, like, oh, how are we going to sell toys to this character? We're never going to see their face. What they did is, the strategy that any major company will do is introduce some cash cow cute little character like
Yeah, Grogu.
the child, which the Grogu didn't get his name for 20 something episodes, but yeah, the child, and they market it that way. They literally marketed billions of dollars worth of merchandise by characters just named the child.
Yeah,
So until we see that it's Pedro Pascal, we don't have a face to the franchise beyond this tiny Yoda
yeah.
character. So
And
ultimate.
I gotta clarify just real quick. I don't have any issues with Mandalorian. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic series so far.
Oh yeah, it reinvigorated my not only interest but
Mm-hmm.
enjoyment. Not only saying, oh, a new Star Wars game or a new Star Wars TV show, but no, like I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah,
Like it's amazing,
it
and
was very
like
good.
I know it's hard to really argue against anything that John Favreau does because the guy just he takes on these passion projects, and he really just puts his all into it,
Yeah.
and he is a lifetime fan, so he wants to make it for other fans, and I think that really shines through.
But that's an example of whenever you allow somebody who knows the source material and was
Yeah,
going to stay true and totally respects it to make something of the sort, i.e., Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, you get
exactly.
something that's absolutely fantastic and magical, and and it's clear. It's
Yeah,
clear when you get those things. It's not one of those. Oh, what is it? Is it special? No, you can see
yeah,
the special in it. Like even the Hobbit series. Say what you want about the Hobbit series, but the Hobbit trilogy, the movies, were pretty damn cool. Like
yeah,
they were really goddamn cool.
and I know we argue about this all the time because I was like, how do they turn a 200-page book into three movies? But yeah, no, I honestly like I know I get a lot of shit for this, but I enjoyed The Hobbit more as a book than I did Lord of the Rings. I think the story is more encapsulated while still like you said, like that enjoyment, that magical touch. And I really enjoyed those movies. I thought it was really cool. Like, yeah, they did add a little flair here and there, but ultimately it's like whenever you first see Smaug come out of that fucking mountain of gold, yeah, shout out to the shirt. Um,
Thanks.
like I exactly. Whenever he comes out and you just see that eye, you're like, holy cow, like this is Smaug, this is the this is the man, this is the dragon, the beast, and his talk with Bilbo just your blood runs ice cold, like that this dragon can't see this hobbit, but he wants to just decimate everything he stands
Yeah,
for. And Benedict Cumberbatch, oh my god, dude,
it's
like he
perfect.
he blew that. Yeah, he didn't just do the voice. He put on the mocap suit. He was crawling around on all fours. He was he was literally giving everything he could to that role, and it showed. It was awesome.
Yeah. And whenever you get people who are willing to do that, it just adds an extra element of special. And when it
Yeah,
comes to the Amazon series, I mean, I am 100% on board. I always want to see more Lord of the Rings.
right.
Always want to see more Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I don't really have any complaints about it prematurely. Um,
it's second age, isn't it?
yeah, I think so.
Okay, so like
But I don't have
yeah,
any
I
kind of
think somebody said like 500 years, 500 years before the Hobbit.
like premature ideas about it. Obviously not like Cowboy Bebop, but
Yeah. We enjoy things too, okay? We're not here just to bitch all the time.
no, yeah, absolutely. Um, but back to the sensitivity thing.
Yeah, we got a
People are
little
too damn
derailed there.
sensitive. Um, Regarding the Faye Valentine, I don't
Yeah.
think. I mean, I understand why they want to do that. I don't think
Hmm.
it's a big deal if they didn't. I don't think it would be such a big problem if Faye was half naked the entire series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's who her character was in the story, and I'm all for. I'm all for capturing the original story as much as possible if you can. Um, if you have to make changes, make sure they make sense.
Yeah.
I was thinking of example earlier, a change that made sense. Um, and that's why I brought up the Attack on Titan thing, right? Like the changes that were made in the Attack on Titan movie, it might not have been the best, but at the end of the day, it was made in a Japanese studio.
Mm.
So how are they going to pay big name actors to come and join their movie? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with, maybe the time constraints or whatever the casting director is looking for specifically. And yeah, if you're gonna cast this large net and be like, oh well, these characters may not have enough vocal lines, or they don't appear too much on screen time, then maybe they think they can get away with it. But in today's age, like people are gonna make their voice heard, and I think that has to do so much with what we're talking about with the whole sensitivity thing. Is like I'll say this to my dying breath, man. I'll die on this hill. Is that the internet is the best and worst thing that ever happened to mankind. It allows you to connect with people, socialize, interact with people from around the world in the best and worst ways. Like if you disagree with somebody, they're going to be coming for you. If you're a group, or whatever soapbox you stand on, and I see the irony. Um, if somebody disagrees, they are going to come for you, and they're gonna bring the fire of how many X amount of people agree with them, and that's what it's always going to come down to, in my opinion. Like if you don't like this, it doesn't matter if it's a video game, politics, freaking food. Like people went up and roar at McDonald's with the whole Pokemon card issue. Like, oh my god, the Rick and Morty thing, the Szechuan sauce too. Like
Yeah.
you you can't say what you want without the shadow looming over your shoulder of somebody who's gonna disagree with you, and suddenly you're their mortal enemy. Like a difference of opinion is what we want to nourish here and thrive here. We want to cultivate that with you. We want to be able to talk, like I said, build the dialogue and not just interrupt each other in like some sort of shouting match. And I think that the cultural sensitivity is it's becoming almost its mission to destroy that. Like, oh, you don't agree with me, then you're bad, you're bad, you're wrong.
And
Don't
that's
say anything,
why
you're wrong.
and that's why I love the name so much, the shit take, is because I don't think that that is the norm. I don't think people care to hear other people's opinions. I don't think whenever you've picked a stance that you're so heavily going to support no matter what, that you care to hear the other side. I don't think that most people who have those attitudes hear another person's opinion and rethink their own and see if there's any problems with their logic. I don't think that that's the case, and so that's why I think it's appropriate calling this the shit take, because I don't think it's the popular opinion at all. I think that it is unpopular, and I think that's why it was such a good name.
No, I agree, and that's the thing we want. We want that blend. Like it's not always black and white. Uh, positions, opinions, they can be swayed. That's the whole point of the dialogue. Like you want that back and forth. Be like, oh, I didn't see it that way. Thank you. Like, or hey man, I'm not fully convinced. Have you thought about this, and this? These are my points against it. These are my points for it. The gray area that it should exist in. And as far as the casting choice, like if it blows you away, it blows you away. Like I think that anybody going to watch this wants to be blown away. Like they want it to be good. They want it to be like an amazing visual experience. Like nobody's expecting it just like, oh, I hope this sucks. And I hope that, like it's just like I hope it's a big FU to all the companies that think they can just adapt whatever they want. Because you know what happens when you do that and it fails? They're not gonna adapt anything else. They're gonna take this as like the prime example of why they shouldn't adapt things, why they shouldn't make more stuff like this. And then you're just like, oh well, crap. Like I guess now I can't have my live action this or my live action that, or oh man, I guess they're not gonna make that movie after all. So many things get canceled, right? So many things get canceled because of such terrible reactions, like right at the gate. And see, I don't know, like if Netflix is going to be like, oh, here's all of it at once, or they're going to do weekly things, the whole binge formula. Like there's a lot of ways that they can do it. Release it in parts or whatever. But you want it to be good so that they can make other stuff like that.
Yeah.
And of course, performance, in my opinion, might be everything. Like they might just have like that hidden gem, or maybe they just made it so amazing that you can't even imagine it being any other way.
Yeah. The only thing that does frustrate me is, so, you pay for a subscription for Netflix,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously, and so when it comes to speaking with your wallet,
Hmm.
it's
The
kind of
almighty
hard to
dollar,
do with Netflix.
right?
Like you're not really accounting your dollar towards any show.
Hmm.
There, your dollar is just towards your subscription itself. So you're not really
Yeah.
buying the show. So not watching Cowboy Bebop is not going to really do much for that whole speaking with your dollar argument. The only thing that's going to do it is just by not watching it, and I mean, I don't think that's going to help either. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where if you don't have enough people doing it, it's really not going to affect them.
Hmm.
And I just don't know how I feel about it. I want to watch it. I don't want to watch it. I kind of feel bad if I actually did go and watch it, because I already disagree with how they're coming into it. And I
Hmm.
feel like the only reason they're coming into it that way is because they're trying to be sensitive of things that are non existent. To be completely honest, they're non existent. Like, It's gonna be an unpopular opinion for sure. You know, but I'm
Yeah.
prepared for it. Whitewashing.
Yeah.
Is there such thing as Asian washing or black washing or just anything else, or is it just whitewashing?
I saw a video that tried to break down like the definition of racism, and basically what they said is like, oh, if X equals Y, then it is racism. Like there's no two ways about it. Like you can't, like you don't get to bend the definition of racism in a way that like only adheres to you. And when it comes to that, if a character is 100% stated to be this ethnicity, this this whatever, uh, and you cast something against that, I think 100% people are going to call you out on it. Like you
Of
don't
course.
get to pretend like this was just some change that happened. Like if you really are saying that we couldn't find somebody who met the specific specifications of what a character is said to be, then yes, people are going to call you out on it, and they're going to say things like, "Oh, it doesn't matter because this doesn't affect the character. This is not." But whenever you have the offhand of that, and the character's design is being just like you and me, the everyman, whatever. If they don't put a specific like description on that character, then of course like it doesn't matter. Like people are gonna be like, oh, you could have cast this, whatever, whatever. I think that's why fan casts exist in the first place, because you're trying as a fan to think about, oh, what would really fit this, like what would really fit this mold, whatever. And that's been going on for years. Like
Yeah.
even like freaking early 2000s, whenever there was a discussion of a Dragon Ball Z movie, like Beckett magazine literally put out like the ultimate fan cast of all these decisions that people wanted. And not only were none of those people even in the running for whenever they made the Dragon Ball Evolution, but people even brought that up, be like, man, like considering what we wanted like 20 years ago versus what we got, like it's crazy. And to answer your question, like I I don't know if there's like a generic term for just whitewashing versus X washing, but I think that if you are saying that this character was supposed to be this race or this ethnicity, this so and so, and they cast against that, then you cannot be surprised in the least when people call you out for it, because you're literally just inviting that sort of backlash, man. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
And that's what I mean is like the whole basis for it was that they were being overly sensitive to not whitewash,
Mm,
and that was see, it was the weirdest thing for me is two of the characters can be perceived as being white, so casting them as
yeah,
white would not have been considered whitewashing. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like it was never on the table,
Mm,
and whenever you're being told that by a producer that that's what they wanted to do was not whitewash on a show where whitewashing was never even an option, that's where I start to blur the lines. That's where I start to get the mindset of, well, this person's coming into this with reasons outside of, respecting the actual subject matter. And do I want to support that? I don't want to support that. I don't want something to happen where Yu Yu Hakusho is made and it takes place here in America. I don't want that to happen. I
yeah.
want it to be in Japan. That's why I'm so excited about the stage production because it's legit.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
legit.
The cast,
It
the
is
like I'm saying,
legit.
like if none of y'all have seen that, like just look up like the poster for it. Like it looks spectacular. Like it's done so well. Like it's a company that's done other stage productions of animes before, and it's just like you can tell like they really put their heart and soul, like the cast like they've recreated so many like stills from the anime, and it's just like my god, like this is the standard. This is where you should set the bar.
Yeah, and I could see like going to watch a ton of those as long as they're done in that similar manner, based on
Mm,
all the different anime that I've seen. Like I'd perfectly be willing to go and watch those. It's just they're handling it with respect to the subject matter, and they're not putting any kind of spin on it that has nothing to do with the fucking show.
It's
Yeah,
not hard. That's the only point that I really want to like stick to my guns about. Like it's not hard to cast well if you
it's
know
really
what you're
not.
doing. If you
Well, if
know
you've
what you're
seen the
doing and
show,
exactly. Like that's the thing like the reason that so many of these things fail is that when they have people involved with them who have never seen the subject matter,
yeah,
absolutely whatever. They're just like, "Oh, let's stick this X actor, this the blah blah blah." Like, okay. Like if you're out for a buck, just say it. Just say that you're trying to appeal to such a broad audience that it doesn't care. And you brought up a good point with the whole like Netflix thing. Like, yeah, you're not paying Netflix specifically for the Cowboy Bebop show. We understand that, but it's just like they especially now with all Netflix's like trending thing, or it says like, oh, just released this week. It shows the top 10 things that people are watching. So if you see Cowboy Bebop in that top 10 the week or whatever it's released, the trending or whatever, that seems that people are watching it.
yeah,
Like
and
there
it'll
is going
happen.
to be yeah, they're gonna see that fan, especially for like the first week, man. Like fan or not, like people are gonna have it in the top 10. Like people are gonna be showing, and you're gonna see those first, first week reviews, first, criticism, praise, whatever. But it's like, yeah, in a world where you can't specifically pay for the, a product that you're seeing again, like in the theaters. Um, Perfect example of that was like the whole HBO Max Disney Plus watch at home thing. Like, yeah, you weren't gonna get the box office that you expected because you weren't
Yeah,
specifically paying for that. And I mean that's a discussion for a whole nother day. But it's just like you see the difference in numbers it makes whenever your dollar or your subscription is going to like this entire product and not service of just one thing.
yeah. And that goes to the whole Scarlett Johansson thing right now. Like
Yeah, exactly. That's
there,
another
it's
very big
not the
issue.
same thing going to see a movie and supporting it by actually showing up and spending money and it being put out on HBO or it being put out on Netflix. It's not the same thing because you cannot gauge properly the interest that it has compared to movies from before, before COVID,
Yeah.
before coronavirus.
Mhm. Yeah, of
You can't
course.
gauge that because watching it at home on your TV is not the same as dedicating 3 or 4 hours out of your day to going and seeing it in a theater. It's not the same thing. My,
Absolutely.
my
I'm sorry, go
dad
ahead.
would never go watch movies. He would never go watch movies. It's probably been a good. I think the last movie he's seen in theater was probably maybe Gran Torino. That's about 10
Not a
years
bad movie to
ago.
watch, but yeah, that's a dated film.
That's like 10 years ago, Like,
Yeah,
my dad, he'll never go and see a movie in theaters, but he will
such a good
watch
movie.
every new movie that comes out on Netflix and Hulu.
Mm,
He
yeah.
watches every one of them. He is
Eh,
not the crowd that goes to the theaters and watches movies and spends his time doing those things. He's not the same
yeah.
person. And that's why I think those numbers are skewed.
No, absolutely. And for one thing, your dad has always been like, "Hey, have you seen this and that?" Or like, "Oh yeah, I have," or share an opinion. And yeah, COVID, the coronavirus has just completely changed like the Hollywood like presentation of film, and if everything clears up, I think that they'll completely backtrack and be like, no, no more home release. Disney's already saying it, like, hey, don't expect any home releases in 2022. I think HBO Max said the same thing after December. They're not gonna release everything else.
Good, we'll get
I
a
think they've got a
Netflix.
yeah. So I'm so mad that we're not getting the Keanu Reeves May. Like it was supposed to be Matrix 4 and John Wick 4 released on the same day. It was gonna be a beautiful thing, but they got pushed back, and I was just like, oh, they killed me. But yeah, no, the standard argument is you're paying like $12 a ticket at a theater per person, plus your food, your snacks, whatever you want to get, and you're racking up your money versus hey, so and so movie is getting released today on Disney Plus on whatever streaming service you have. Why don't we all just go to my place and watch it? And they're getting your subscription, and that's it. They're not getting another dollar from you.
Yeah.
Everything that they're every monetary revenue that they're getting in is based on all these people watching it on their own Disney Plus and having their own subscription being paid off for it. Like no, dude, like that model is completely shut. And then Disney had a thing where they're like, oh, you can pay $30 and you get it like early access or whatever
Yeah.
it was. But it's just like even at that point, like yeah, I paid the $30, but it's like the movie's not mine. Like I don't get to like watch this outside of Disney Plus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like HBO Max did it differently. They said, hey, you're already paying for the subscription. It's so much dollars. We're gonna give you this movie for X amount of days, and then after that, it leaves or it rotates out. So yeah, that's the thing. And the last movie that I saw, honestly, it was Quiet Place 2. It was just because it wasn't on any streaming service that I had available. I
Uh,
think it ended up going to like Paramount or like Amazon Plus or Amazon Prime, and we're like, oh well, it's showing in theaters. Let's go. And then we went. And there was nobody there. Like, just like okay, like this was like if that was any indication that like literally we went to the theater and it was empty,
yeah.
like there's nobody else there. We saw that they still were showing the movies. Like they didn't close down the theater or anything. Um, you know, still walked in with a mask, whatever, or
Yeah. I think the story is what should be the main focus because without the story, you don't have the show. You don't have the show, and you wouldn't have the live action show because you wouldn't have the manga or the anime to actually base it on. You wouldn't have those things because you don't have that story. And so, not respecting the story, you're already setting yourself up for failure. And unfortunately, they're not the first ones to do it. Not the first ones to do it. I think we talked about the Rurouni Kenshin movies
yeah.
and how good
Mhm.
they were.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah,
You haven't seen
vast.
those, like Jesus Christ, like man, that is like an A plus on the adaptation, man. Like the songs, the effects, the cinematography, like my God. Somebody took like a still where it's Kenshin just like looking into the sky as like leaves fall into him, and they have the exact same shot in the movie, and it's just a 1-to-1. Like it's crazy.
And then, of course, like you said it earlier, the whole making shows for who wants to, oh no, I don't know if you were the one that said it, but I read it earlier today. Who wants to watch a shot for shot remake of the actual manga or the anime?
Yeah,
Who wants to actually watch that? And I'm like,
I didn't say
me,
that, but I definitely don't agree with them trying
like
to say like nobody wants to watch it. Like,
I
of
want to
course
watch
you
that.
do. Yeah,
The whole
like
reason why
that's
I want to watch it is because I haven't seen it in live action.
yeah.
That's
Like,
why I want to see that.
have you ever read a book before? Like, you want to watch that come to life? Like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
like, oh man, this is the part where he did this. Oh my God, this is where he did that. Like, why do you want to deprive yourself of that experience? Like, are you crazy? Like, no.
And
What?
I remember like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part Two, the movie.
Yeah.
I remember I read that book um, at my grandmother's house. I was house sitting for her for 3 days, and I took that book to read it over the course of the 3 days.
Mm,
And I remember getting to the part where Harry's walking through the forest. Spoiler
yeah.
alert. Um,
Yeah.
Harry's walking through the forest, and he ends up turning the resurrection stone over in his hand, and his family basically appears before him, along with
Mm,
Lupin.
yeah.
And I remember building that out in my scene, and building the scene out in my head, and I remember, like, oh man, that's such a good scene. Like I was really psyched about that. And finally, whenever in theaters, watching the second movie, and the scene played out almost exactly the way that I had built it in my head, and I thought to myself, I
Yeah.
was like, man, that's a really good portrayal. That means whoever read this book had a very similar idea to me.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, I give a lot of grief to J.K. Rowling and her writing because I don't think
Mm,
she's that great of a writer. But
no.
in that scene, she must have done a good job of portraying it because people had a similar idea of what it was going to seem like. And so when it finally happened, it hit me, and I was like, oh man, it's almost exactly what I was thinking. It's a really good portrayal. So I look forward to those moments. I look forward to those
Mm,
moments. And if you're not someone that looks forward to those moments and you want to see something different, watch a different anime.
exactly.
Watch a different
Yeah.
movie. Like I don't understand what the appeal is of changing things that don't need to be changed. Like
Yeah.
story, like why would you dedicate so much time to changing story? The Attack
Mm,
on Titan thing, again, I understand why they went the route they did, but the story of Attack on Titan is very particular. It's very
yeah.
particular. Those people are white
Hmm.
and other mixed races, but they're not Asian. They're specifically not Asian because of
Yeah.
the story. So when you're watching an Attack on Titan movie and you've only ever heard about this story, how can you really watch that and think, well, this makes sense? Like, it literally
Yeah.
can't. Like, there's the subject matter is just it's not there. It can't be there. It's literally impossible for it to be there because they've basically sacrificed such a huge part of the storyline to appease, you know, casting decisions and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like it just seems like I don't know, man. Like, and again, I said at the very beginning of all this is are all these problems? Why are all these problems like with anime and superhero movies? Well, the reason why is because we have ideas of what those people should or shouldn't be like. And let me put this cat down. Hey.
Having none of it.
But like we have ideas as to like what these people look like and how they act because we've seen the anime, we've read the books, we've read the comics and the mangas. Like we have all these things that we have in our minds as to how these people are supposed to be. And then some dickhead from Hollywood who thinks
From
he's fucking gonna
Hollywood.
he thinks he's gonna fucking revolutionize, you know,
Yeah.
movie making and TV series thinks, well, you know what, I'm gonna change it up. Why?
Yeah.
Why do you need to change a thing? The dude has cast credits for like the first season of Lost. I think it was Charmed, the 100, stuff like that.
Yeah.
None of them are anime. Like absolutely no ties to anime whatsoever. Like no comic heroes, whatever. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
bro. Like
Yeah. No, dude, I
no
get it.
experience whatsoever in the field, and
No
then all of a
parallel.
sudden, well, I'm gonna be the one to fix it. Okay.
Right? Yeah. Like and that's the thing. Like obviously we're sharing opinions here. We're riffing. But it's just like yeah, that's the soapbox this guy wants to stand on. Like, and this is the thing. Going off what you said earlier. Like I'm not even gonna touch the J.K. Rowling thing because that's a whole nother topic for another day. And with the Resurrection Stone in particular, like yeah, dude, like those are those moments they call movie magic. Whenever you're there and you're like, oh my god, like this is literally unfolding onto the screen. Like it's like seeing a book become a play,
Mm-hmm.
become a TV show, become a movie. Like you're
Page
seeing
master,
it
man.
come alive. Exactly, you're seeing it come alive yourself. So whenever somebody says like, "Oh, this is a good decision to change," like, well, why? Like, why wouldn't you make something else? Because now it's not this; it's something else. Like there's a difference between change for a good reason or to make it maybe clear like oh I didn't have a chance to write this so then this is a revision but change for change sake like come on like don't pretend like you're standing on for anything else but yourself
Yeah.
and for what him for him to say that like oh like he's coming into this like he's gonna shake things up and it's just like you're trying to do so much with I guess a limited cast and maybe you're trying to check certain boxes but like
I
don't
don't know,
pretend
man.
like you're doing that for the fans.
John Cho,
Yeah.
like if you think about it, right? Like we talked about this the other day. HBO. It seems to me
Yeah.
that the very first step in any HBO series that's ever put out is casting.
Right.
They have to make absolute sure they get the casting spot on.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a studio that puts out a better casting decision as HBO. I think
Mhm.
HBO is probably the best. And say what you want about Game of Thrones and how it ended, but were any of those characters not absolutely perfect?
I like off the top of my head, I can't make a strong decision on anybody's like against their casting because yeah, like that's such a character driven show. Like
Yeah.
yes, there is clearly conflicts going on with the politics and the actual story, the wars and all that, but it's just like ultimately that all takes a back seat whenever it's two people in front of themselves talking.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much of the drama and like the dialogue is just running that show completely.
Yeah.
And they even call back to that and like oh like are you gonna stab me while we're walking through the rose maze because that's where everything's happening like there's people talking to each other and that's what's carrying the show that's what's thriving it like that's what's making the show thrive and no like when you think of certain people it's just like that's who that is like that is the character like
Yeah.
that is Kit Harington's Jon Snow
I
Peter
saw
Dinklage is Tyrion.
I saw Kit Harrington like in a trailer for another movie the other day, and I thought to myself, like, man, am I gonna be able to look at him any different? I
And he
don't
even
know.
said No, he even said himself like he wanted to like step away from like the silent badass swordsman and like play different roles because he's coming out in Eternals and he's
Yeah.
gonna be playing a character who uses a sword. But like we'll see how that actually like goes for him. But yeah, like the guy I don't want to say typecast himself in this role, but it's just like when you play such an iconic role for so long, of course people are gonna look at you that way.
Was that like his first role, or did he appear in anything before? Like anything major?
Uh, trying to think. Well, I mean, he was in the Silent Hill movie, the second one,
Yeah, he was.
but
Revelation,
yeah,
right?
and then he was in
You know,
the second and
I was gonna mention the Silent Hill movies. I like them. Even the second one, like it's a little bit goofy, and it definitely doesn't follow
mhm,
like definitely doesn't
no,
base anything on the
yeah,
storyline. But
that,
that's the cool
that's
thing
that's
about
a
the
that's a
Silent
yeah.
Hills, though, is every one of them
The
like
Silent Hill games don't follow the Silent Hill lore.
exactly
Like
like
that's just
each
yeah.
one of the movies
This
can just
isn't
be completely different.
this isn't Fatal Frame, and in fact, freaking Homecoming basically just lampoons that. And in general,
Hmm.
whenever he's going through therapy and he's just telling everyone like, "Oh, this is what happened," he's like, "No, that didn't happen. You're in a psych ward. Like you're making this crap up." And then even like the games themselves, and that's Konami in its prime though, literally making fun of its own intellectual
Yeah,
properties. Freaking ape escape monkeys and little Shibas, aliens abducting your daughter at the end of the game, like it's crazy. But no, the first one to me stands so strongly. Like it gives like, and again, pay attention to our Halloween episode. We're gonna go for a long time about this stuff. But the first one, it was so like to me like okay, like I can understand like that's the game. And the second one, like you said, is a little bit off the rails there. But like the casting was so strong that I was just like okay, well at least they're representing the character to what
yeah.
basically appears to be them at their core. But as far as Kit Harrington, like yeah, he played. I think he played Vincent Fox. I think that was the character's name. Um. But he's been in other stuff. Like I'm not taking anything away from him. Like even
Yeah.
in the How to Train Your Dragon movies, he was in the second and the third ones. He was one of the dragon catchers, and he used a more like natural version of his accent. I was like, oh wow, that's Kit Harrington. That's cool.
Yeah. He was
But
also in
I
that
think
the tennis
yes, he
movie
was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like on HBO.
documentary with Andy
Documentary,
Samberg.
yeah, yeah.
That was
Yeah,
funny
see,
as
like,
hell.
yeah, it gave him like because I mean, clearly in Game of Thrones, it's more heavily drama. Like, there's comedies, here and there, but a movie like that, he got to play something that was so against what he was known for in Game of Thrones, and really show those layers to
Mm.
himself as an actor. And I think that was cool. Like, I think he's young enough that like he can branch out and do different things.
Yeah,
I mean, he's checking off a Marvel checkbox. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, oh, I was
it's
a
a big one.
superhero, so. Yeah. It is like there's a lot of people like I think Minghua, I think that was her name. Like she just like she said that she played somebody in Star Wars, somebody in a Disney movie, and a Marvel movie. So she's like, oh, I checked off the three big boxes I wanted to. I think that's cool. Like seeing like the range of your ability and seeing like oh I can play this, I can play that. If a character, I mean, if an actor is fine being like casted for those types of roles, like they just want to play the same thing, then far be it from anyone to tell them they can't.
Yeah, and then you have like like Deadwood, Sopranos,
Yeah.
Oz, Boardwalk Empire. You have all these shows that the casting is just it's phenomenal from the get go, and those shows always start off really strong. You even have Carnival, like they
Yeah.
all start off really strong, and I don't know, like those shows. I don't remember a point in which they all faltered. Like Carnival didn't last too long, but I think it was just really the material itself. How long you
I
gonna
mean,
go about a fucking like devil preacher?
yeah, and see, even the thing is, like with Sopranos, with Deadwood, with all that stuff is like even the ones that don't necessarily last too long, they get like revivals or they get sequels or they get movies. Like we're getting a prequel movie to
Oh, I
Sopranos.
can't wait, dude.
We're getting that. We got the Deadwood movie. Like we it doesn't always happen immediately, but eventually, like even Dexter's getting a little revival series. Like, whenever something becomes like a cult classic or the fan demand is there, I think eventually, whenever they see like, oh, we can bring this back and it'll be really strong. And right now, we're living in the greatest, remake, rehash revival sort of
Unfortunately.
uh period. And yeah, like some are good, some are bad. Like where you gotta sometimes
Honestly, I like the Mortal
take
Kombat
the
movie.
lemonade. I thought it was really cool. I
It
definitely
wasn't
disagree
perfect.
with certain. It wasn't perfect.
It
It
wasn't
definitely was
perfect
not
by any
perfect.
means, but I mean, I always feel like with a Mortal Kombat movie, how is it going to be perfect without going absolutely the goriest you could possibly go, the cheesiest you can possibly go, and then it becomes a movie that's hard to watch.
I agree because you don't want it to basically turn into like a torture porn movie, but it's like because it's going to be gritty.
Yeah,
Those games are rated what they're rated for a reason. But I will say this that I'm looking forward to the sequel a lot more because of some of the ideas he wanted. Because that director, that was like his first thing ever. I
yeah,
think he did like music videos or like some TV shows, but he had never done a feature film. And a lot of the cast was, I wouldn't say no names, but it was just like they weren't more conventional like to what that was going to be. And they did the whole original character thing being the focal point of the movie, and like, oh my god, dude, I love that actor so much. Was it Louis Tan? But like, man, like, it's just like, dude, like, why couldn't you just cast him as like Liu Kang or something? Like, it was
hmm
so weird, like having to like try and root for somebody who didn't.
Oh,
Like,
that Liu
there
Kang was
was,
good though.
yeah, no, dude, that guy's cool. I think he was Ludi Lin. I think he played the Blue Power Ranger in that awful Power Rangers reboot movie.
That's a bad
But
one.
we're not gonna go there. But more on the Mortal Kombat, like it was like the fights were cool. Like the fighting choreography could have been a little bit more, and they didn't do too much effects. But for one, I thought that movie was way too short, and two, like there was like 15 minutes of talking, and then they kind of like squeezed in the fights while promising an actual tournament in the second movie. Because
Yeah.
he's like, oh, if it goes well, we can do like upwards to 6. And I was like, yeah, I mean, if HBO is gonna like back you with those numbers, then yeah, sure. But the biggest fault to me, and I'm sorry, like, this is me nitpicking, and I'm gonna admit that right now. I'm gonna say it is that god awful remix of the freaking Mortal Kombat theme song, and
Why not just put
damn
the
well they were.
original?
I
Why not
literally
just do
said it
that?
because
Like,
they okay, look, because they were literally trying to appeal to like the whole EDM like dubstep stuff. That's kind of like, I'm not saying it's not still there, but it's definitely not 2012. So like whenever that was like do 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 do, and then it just went like boom, and I was like, come on, dude, like nobody wanted it. They could have literally put the original one, which was made for the 1990s dance craze, the club trends. Like I'm not gonna say that it wasn't. It's definitely another generation thing, but nobody would have cared. It would have been the exact same thing. It's because one, they didn't even play it in the fucking movie. They played it in the credits, which the original Mortal Kombat movie, they played the theme song when Liu Kang fought Shao Kahn. I'm not Shao Kahn, I'm sorry, Shang Tsung.
yeah.
And it was part of that fight scene, and it was badass. Like it made sense. But this, they literally were like, okay, we're just gonna play it over the credits. Like we don't care. I was like, oh my god, like come on. Like it was ridiculous.
It reminded me of the Broly song in the Broly movie.
Broly, go Broly, go Broly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that
and
one.
that now that's become a meme. That's because like okay, first of all, like no nostalgia glasses on here, but I thought like the freaking Broly movie was so much like better than the legendary Super Saiyan one. They gave Broly so much personality, and it was just badass. Like that's an example of improving on something that did exist. They brought Broly into the canon. They said, okay, this is what would happen if it would actually like made more sense to the story wise. They leave it open to use him in the greater part of the canon, not just the movie. But like yeah, like they added a lot of flair to it, and it was pretty cool. But yeah, the Broly go Broly,
It was a
like it was
weird
just like
moment.
okay, it was a weird moment, and otherwise like just
It was a
big
really cool
destructive.
scene. Like
Yeah, like
really
there
cool
was
scene. The first person him flying around was fucking cool. Like seeing things from his
yeah.
perspective. But
Yeah, definitely.
the
Like
song
that
was
that
odd.
movie was badass. Yeah. And see the thing is I think that Broly movie set such a high bar that I don't know, like I'm really looking forward to the Dragon Ball Super movie, but it's just like man, like now you're just gonna be like, oh, it wasn't good as a Broly movie, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But at least they're making their movies canon, and I think that's always something nice to like. I'll be like, oh, I can see this, and it actually matters. Not like, oh, well, it doesn't matter because it didn't happen anyway. Like, all
Yeah.
right, like shut up. Let's see my boy Bardock do some cool shit. That was awesome. I liked it. At the end of the day, I think they're trying to make their product appeal to as many people as they can. And
I don't. I think that they're doing it for statements. I think that
well,
they're
I
trying
mean,
to make statements when it comes to like fairness and injustice and that kind of stuff. I feel like that plays. I feel like that plays more of a role in the casting decisions these days than the actual story and the characters themselves.
I think that a lot of people want to see what they believe to be a representation of themselves on screen or video game, whatever medium they're trying to like portray it as. And I think that the general populations, like, I really don't care. Like, if this is good, I'm gonna watch it. If it's bad, I'm gonna, of course, I'm gonna say that it's bad. I'm not gonna agree with somebody saying that it's good if it's not.
Yeah.
But also, it's just like, man, like, if you want to enjoy something, enjoy it. Like, I don't feel like, oh, if this isn't you know, 38-year-old Asian man portraying this character who looks like me, then I'm not gonna watch it. Or, oh, if this isn't,
You see, and that would be
yeah,
wrong.
it's like
That,
I think that's what it is though. Like a lot of people want to see like, oh, this has to be a representation of me, or I don't want it.
you see, that would be wrong. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it's for me. It's when you're already betraying the story and the source, like the actual source material. You're already doing a disservice to the that which you're trying to basically benefit from, that which is supposed to, make you money. Like, it's
Mhm.
it's the last season of Game of Thrones. It's them basically putting their own little spin on it instead of staying
Right.
true to what they've done this entire time, right? They're taking a storyline and they're warping it to meet some weird fucking quota. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's what it is. I feel like it's literally it's literally just betraying the story and the source material. And I feel like that's wrong. I feel like that's
Okay.
I mean,
I
this is all
misunderstood you.
premature. This is all premature,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this is
I
all.
misunderstood you.
No, no, no. I don't give a shit to see Spike look like me. I want him
Yeah.
to look like Spike.
Yeah.
I want him to look like that. And my thought is like, there are millions of fucking people out there that look like Spike. Millions of
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
and some of them act. I'm fucking sure of it.
Yeah.
I sent you that picture the other day of the guy who I thought could play Chris Redfield.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Was he not perfect?
See that? No, he definitely was. He
He
had
looks
like
exactly like the fucking guy.
he looked like he came out of the freaking like original live action cutscenes from the first game. And see that's a good point because like I feel like it always comes back to the apocalypse argument from X-Men, Apocalypse or whatever. Uh Oscar Isaac, who I do believe is a fantastic actor, he always does these roles that I fucking hate, and Apocalypse was one of them because that did not look anything like fucking Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And that year at Comic Con, this guy came in his own fucking homemade costume, the lifts and the shoes and everything, and it was a perfect representation of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And it's why do cosplayers literally do this shit in their own home for an astronomically fraction of what a Hollywood costume designer's $1 million budget is, and it looks 1,000 times better. Like, why is that? Like, why do you act like it's so hard to do something correctly? These people are literally doing it for like fucking pennies on the dollar compared
In
compared to your budget.
in their free time.
Yes, in their free
Some of
time,
them
like
aren't
they're
getting
mostly
paid.
yeah,
Like,
but some of them are getting paid for this. They're not sponsored by somebody. Like they're literally, oh, I am doing this whole thing myself with a freaking PVC pipe and a 3D printer. Maybe it's like it's crazy. Like cosplay takes a lot. Like I'm never gonna downplay cosplay because
no, yeah, definitely not.
those people are like they have to be masters of their craft. Even starting from zero, like they're putting their hard work into it. But it's just like, man, like how can they do this and it be so much better than that? Like, come on, like you've seen cosplayers of Spike before. Like
Yeah.
they go to the nines, and I think that's what upsets people the most is when they see these adaptations look so bad or they turn out so bad when there's literally somebody who's doing it at a convention and they're like, wow, this is the best blank cosplayer I've ever seen. And then, they take a picture, they put it online, and then you're gonna get compared to it. And yeah, like you said, maybe some of them act, maybe some of them don't, but it's like you at least look the part. So
Yeah.
at the very least, take that representation of this person who looks like it and be like, okay, well, here's the costume, this is how it looks, and like find somebody who can portray that well. And again, like you said, it's premature. Maybe she knocks us out of the park. Who knows? Like, but the
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
is,
No,
like,
definitely that. Like, all premature. This is just my first take on it. This is seeing
yeah,
the fucking set photos that they put out. This is reading what the producer put out. In response to the initial criticism. Like, if you know, the internet is a ruthless place in a lot of ways, and they can control some shit,
yeah.
i.e., the Sonic movie.
Perfect example.
Dude, it's
It
a
always
perfect
comes back to
example.
that.
Like,
Yeah.
they put out a shit fucking picture, and the internet fucking tore that shit apart. So
Hmm.
much so that they changed it. And that movie
Yeah.
was fucking awesome. The Sonic
Yeah.
movie was
It
fucking awesome.
literally, yeah.
And you know what the worst
It
part
was
is?
like,
It probably wouldn't have been any different otherwise. It probably would have been the same fucking movie, just with a different looking Sonic the Hedgehog.
yeah.
Like, literally that it. But that movie would have
Mhm.
sucked. It would have been trash if Sonic looked the
Yeah.
way he did in the final product.
Absolutely. That is your representation of your character. That is the Sonic the Hedgehog. And again, like, it was CGI, so yeah, it was clearly all the dialogue was fucking filmed. They just had to change how he looked. And they literally pushed that movie, cost more, millions of dollars to do it. But the thing is, like, it matters. It matters how it looks because it's like, this is what it is. It's Hollywood telling you, like, this is a subpar product, and you've all voiced your opinions. Well, we don't care, and we're forcing you to try and accept that.
Yeah.
And if they want you to be okay with it. And that's the thing, like, dude, like, if something is bad and they're telling you it's bad and there's enough of a consensus generally, you don't want to take that into consideration, that's fine. Nobody's saying you have to, but you can't stand there on your soapbox and pretend like it's great and expect people not to give you backlash for it.
Yeah.
And that, like, look at where we are now. Like, the Sonic movie did fantastic in the box office. It's getting a sequel. Fucking, I forget who's playing Knuckles, but on the
Oh,
short list it was supposed to be Jason Momoa, and that really got
no,
me. And I
it
was like,
ended up
damn,
being
yeah.
fuck.
I can't even remember, but they were like, oh, Jason Momoa was on the short list. The casting director said that. The producer, the director was like, yeah, we were really envisioning Jason Momoa to be like this really, like, like fun-loving, kind of like, goofy Knuckles. And I was like, okay, well, like, Knuckles is kind of serious about the chaos, the Master Emerald and everything, but he he has personality. And I just remember when they said who was playing him, I'm like, oh my god, it was Idris Elba. That's
Idris
who it
Elba, yeah,
fucking
that's
was.
the one, yeah.
Because I just watched the Suicide Squad, and I was like, God, dude,
Yeah.
like,
And that's gonna be
Idris
awesome.
Elba, he's a fantastic actor, but he always plays like these cocky fucking pricks, man. Like,
Yeah.
God, dude, he plays that role so well. Like, whenever I look at him, I always just think with Charles Miner from The Office, and it's just like that. That's who he is to me, and I'm just like, he's like, no, you don't get to say anything, just leave. Like, God. Oh man, like,
But
we'll see.
in
Like,
the spirit of
oh,
fairness, though,
mhm,
I want to mention a movie that I personally liked. I appreciated that it was made by a true fan of the series,
mhm,
and that he absolutely tried to, you know, he was absolutely making the movie with fans in mind, and that was the Warcraft movie, Duncan Jones.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
he made that movie with the fans in mind, and an overwhelming number of fans did not enjoy that movie, and
yeah,
I personally loved it.
yeah.
But that was an example of a movie being made by a fan for the fans, and it just didn't work. It didn't work out as well. Of course, it did
And
well in the box
again,
office because of China numbers, but
China destroyed that in the box office, man. Like, China, like, that's the thing too. Like, you, again, like, this is speaking out, like, again, well, as an opinion, but, like, ultimately, we want it to do well here, but whenever it, like, does well overseas, that's when they take such a good look at it and be like, oh man, we can franchise this, let's get a
yeah,
fast track sequel. Like, perfect example of that was Transformers. I want to say Dark Side of the Moon, when it was the one that China was trying to boycott so much, and Paramount was literally like bending over backwards trying to get it released there because they were like, oh, this could be the difference between 100 million, 200 million to $1 billion franchise, and China ended up getting it later, something like a couple things edited out, and yeah, it gave it like such an overwhelming, like, response that they ended up doing like more sequels. Like, yeah, overseas markets account for so much when it comes to cinema, and we can't pretend like they don't.
Yeah.
Like, even something, yeah, like Warcraft that didn't have a mass appeal. Like, it's a computer game. You know what I mean? Like, if you've never heard of Warcraft, you've never played WoW, like that's your target audience. So
I personally
you know,
liked it. I love the movie. I bought it on Blu-ray, special edition, all that kind of
yeah,
shit. Like I thought it was badass, and I thought it was really cool that even though it was really, looking at the armor on screen and it being super bulky like it is in the game, you know,
mm,
it's not realistic, but it's Warcraft.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
they were literally fighting orcs, so I mean, it was
yeah.
never going to be
Where,
realistic.
yeah, no, it's not. It's not. It's fantasy. Like, it's never gonna be rooted in the world of realism.
Yeah.
And they even the effects, which I thought were good, but it was a really nice blend of the hybrid CGI. Like, you saw the people there, the
Hmm.
mocap. They're clearly, they're, like you said, they're orcs. They're elves. They're humans, and they're all sitting there together. And the humans have that effect on them, so it doesn't look like it's a guy talking to a green screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it all looks like it blended well. And yeah, it's a shame. Like, I don't know if they'll ever try and undertake that sort of thing again. Certainly not, Blizzard now, but
I know, dude.
like, we'll, it's when the next big video game franchise is properly adapted, then maybe they'll go back and say, hey, give that another try, or even a TV show. Like, you don't have to make a movie. Like, honestly, television shows that last long or longer running end up becoming more profitable for companies anyway.
Yeah.
But
It just costs a lot to make like a Warcraft show.
yeah, definitely. And seeing like that too, like, even if you don't do like CGI, like you do traditional animation, you're probably gonna be paying the most in voice acting
Yeah.
if they have like high names attached to them.
Mm.
Like, look at Castlevania. Like, Castlevania was fantastic, regular
Oh my
traditional
god,
animation,
dude.
but the
This
voices
show's
were
so
like
good.
they were like, and
The,
you saw what they're doing, right?
with what?
Because they're doing another Castlevania show. It's just not going to be the same game. A lot of people are thinking
Oh,
it's going
cool.
to be like, yeah, like, obviously one of his descendants, but maybe like not Curse of Darkness, but Arya Sorrow, Donna Sorrow, something like that. Like, even Lord of Shadows, like, they could just reboot it again.
That's cool.
Yeah, the guy in charge of it, he said that he wants to make like his own kind of like universe with it. So who knows? Maybe like another Devil May Cry anime or Metroid, something like that.
Yeah, and with that one, there's a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of lore already, like
Yeah, there's a
with the
ton of
games.
Castlevania games.
But
Yeah.
that's like one of those things that there's also a lot of time in between the games that you could even add to.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I'd be perfectly fine with that. But again, if you're gonna make changes that make sense. Don't make changes for change's sake. That just
Yeah.
I feel like it does a disservice to the actual storyline.
Because the Belmonts, that's like a French heritage family, and obviously they're traveling because they're monster hunters, so they're not always going to be in the same part of the world. But
And it's Richard Armitage, right?
yeah, yeah, he,
Trevor.
he played Trevor. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Bill Nye was in there
Good
too.
old Thorin Oakenshield.
Yeah. This is a man. This is a man I can follow. This is a man I can call king. That scene, like, oh my god, that's a scene that gets me every single time. Just, oh, is he fighting what, Bolg on the treetop?
Yeah.
So cool. Oh my god. No, it's Azog, right? Azog the Defiler.
Azog the Defiler.
Yeah, Bolg's the son that fights Legolas. Uh,
I like that they. My favorite character in those films were Thranduil. A character that
yeah, but
didn't really have a lot of like didn't really have a ton of information on him beforehand, so the guy had to make the character his own, but he did great.
yeah, yeah. Like, that's the thing I was about to say. Like, for somebody who didn't have a lot of like presence in the book, he had a fair amount of dialogue and screen time, but he commanded like every, like, I feel bad for like all the actors with like having to share this scene with him. He was just like, he was just gonna fucking, I did free him. I freed his head from his shoulders. Like, he just like, oh.
Do not
Even in the
speak
battle,
to
he's just
me
take.
of dragon's fire.
Oh my god, dude!
That
Like, he's
scene
such a
is so
badass.
good, dude.
Even the scene when they're fighting in the ruins and he just takes out two swords, and just starts fucking like hacking away
Hmm.
orcs. Like, dude, like, oh my god. guy survived a dragon. Like, what do you think you're gonna do to him? Like, get out of here. It's crazy. They're talking about like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in there, and they're like, oh, you guys are just writing nostalgia. Tom Holland's Spider-Man is the best Spider-Man. It's just like based on what? Like by your logic, you're just liking this Spider-Man because he's the new Spider-Man. Like if you want to watch all those movies and do like a this is the good, this is the con. Like it's not perfect, but nothing is like especially with like the MCU's portrayal of Spider-Man. Like it's much less about him discovering himself and always having like the mentor character. And yes, I get it. He's a young hero, and it was literally like, oh, it wasn't like the comics. He wasn't Spider-Man for a good while, graduating high school and college and starting to like meet all these heroes. It's like literally like, oh, I saw you on YouTube. You're 14 years old. Come fight, come fight against Captain America in Civil
Yeah.
War. Like it's crazy. Like I was really hoping that the third or fourth movie would literally just be him by himself without any help from anybody and seeing how he develops it. I don't know because like the whole Sony Disney thing is crazy right now with how Spider-Man is,
Yeah.
but
And
like
that brings up the whole, well, if you're going to bring out Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, then why did you remove Tobey Maguire's name from the first three movies? You know what I mean?
yeah, I don't know what that was. I don't know if that was just like a fan being weird on freaking Google or IBATM
Dude,
whatever.
I have
But yeah,
no
like that
idea. How is it even possible? Like, what the fuck is that all
like
about? Like
I'm gonna
literally,
sound
if you
ignorant.
look it up, it's
Yeah,
not there.
and I'm gonna be ignorant here, and I don't understand. Like maybe there's a way to create a fake image, Google search. I don't know. Like that's outside of my wheelhouse. But like yeah, like why would you not be able to like see the star of that movie's name stricken from the credits? Like at this point, we basically do know that they're gonna be in Spider-Man,
Yeah,
the new Spider-Man movie. So it's kind of like weird that you would try to hide that, but it's like
that's on
Disney's been
Google.
spending. Yeah, yeah. Google, I guess, like I don't know,
Spider-Man
maybe they'll
1, 2, and
fix
3,
that.
and literally Tobey Maguire's name not on those little cast lists.
Yeah,
I'm not.
it's
It's not
weird.
on
Like
IMDb or anything like that, but specifically on Google. So if you're
on
searching up like
Google.
Spider-Man
Okay.
1, his name doesn't pop up. Well, why even have any of the people from the first movie? You know,
Yeah, like
it's just
Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, like
yeah,
they're freaking J.K. Simmons.
kind of weird,
Like
huh?
why? Yeah, that is weird.
I just found it
Especially because
so
J.K.
weird.
No, it is weird because J.K. Simmons is in the Tom Holland movies. Like he had that cameo and he's already been confirmed to be in the other one. So it's just like they share an actor. It's the same. He's playing the same character.
Yeah,
Like yeah, that's a head scratcher, man.
I still think the best Spider-Man movie in the past 6, 7 years, I guess since the Switch,
Mhm.
since Tom Holland, I still think the best one's probably Into the Spider Verse.
Yeah, no,
It was so good.
I literally cannot like. Everyone says that like it's a guarantee. Like you obviously have your own opinions, but it's just like yeah, that movie. I mean, it was an animated movie. Like that's a different realm for sure. But it was an animated movie that literally beat out a Disney movie at the Oscars, and
Yeah,
that never happens. Disney always has such like a commanding like hold on best animated feature. But no, it was good. Like it had the storyline. It
his
had a soundtrack. The animation like was all
yeah
over the place, but it was done on purpose. It was supposed to represent like the different characters and where the uniforms were,
yeah
different art styles. Like it was cool. And like yeah, like they're getting a franchise out of that. There's gonna be spin-offs and all this sort of this and that. Um, the only problem with that movie, I think, is that it shouldn't have been called Into the Spider-Verse. I think it should have been called Ultimate Spider-Man, and just focused more on Miles Morales as a Spider-Man, because it wasn't like they were like dimension hopping. It was all those Spider-Mans coming
yeah
to like the one dimension, and helping Miles there. And I just think that Ultimate Spider-Man would have given it a bigger pop, and then,
probably.
whatever they're gonna call the sequel. I don't know if it'll just be Into Spider-Verse 2 or something. Uh, but yeah, like give Miles his just due. Like it wasn't easy for him to just suddenly become Spider-Man and then his Peter Parker die. So like yeah, give him some more focus, and like the new Spider-Man video game where you're playing as Miles. I think that's cool. Like maybe he gets a TV show or something.
Yeah. Um, I haven't played it, but
Yeah,
kind of waiting to buy new games until I finally get the PS5.
absolutely.
You
Like,
know,
yeah,
I just
like
kind of feel like
there.
it's a waste if I purchase all this stuff for PS4 right now.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there, besides the launch titles, there's like nothing you can really get for the PS5 that you can't get on PS4. And
Yeah.
then it's this has been the shit take. Error for the win.
Oh, what?
Thank you for
Yeah.
listening. Thank you for giving us the little bit of your time. Listen to us, just shouting our opinions at you. No, right? No, we're trying to give and take, forward and back. Just riff and just share a little bit of what we think, and hopefully we'll get some feedback. Good, bad. Tell us what you like, tell us what you didn't. If there's something that you maybe specifically want us to talk about, maybe review or anything that you can think of. Game, movies, whatever, TV shows, something that's just happening. Maybe just want to have a conversation. Just let us know.
And we hope to make this a weekly thing. Like I said from the very beginning, it's just us discussing stuff back and forth, but an open dialogue that isn't so much affected by any kind of political leaning or cultural issues going on. We're just us. It's just us, and our opinions are what they are. They're just our opinions, and if you don't agree with them, like my friend said, you don't have to agree with us, and you can let us know if you think that we're off base. Um, you can tell us those things. If you have anything that you'd like us to talk about, you can always suggest it in the comments. You can, direct message us on Twitter or anything, whatever you can reach us on. But yeah, we'll talk about anything. And as long as we understand it, right? Because we don't want to talk about something we don't
Yeah.
understand, because that's going to be,
No, we're not. Yeah.
that's going to be a
we don't
problem.
want to. We don't. We don't want to give a blind opinion of something we have no knowledge of. Like, oh, what do you
Exactly.
think about that?
But yeah, I mean, like as long as we understand it, as long as there's enough for us to read and understand, we're going to go ahead and do that, and we'll do our due diligence and
Yeah.
and understand it before we actually speak about it, because the last thing you want is misinformation, and that's the last
Yeah.
thing we want to
Yeah.
provide is misinformation. So we appreciate
Exactly.
you. We appreciate you tuning in. Like I said, it's gonna be a weekly thing, so hopefully next week you'll have a video you can watch then. But until then,
This is the shit take.
yup.